Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 17 of the Interviews Playlist. Our special guest for today is Laila. Laila, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks for having me. My name is Laila. I'm in my third year of computer science at the University of Windsor, and I'm doing a specialization in software engineering. I'm involved on campus on a couple of different things, but I'm excited to talk today.
Awesome. So let's start from the very beginning, from your high school. What courses did you take in your high school? What extracurriculars were you involved in? And how did that spark your interest in the field of IT?
Cool. Yeah. So I kind of took an untraditional route to computer science, at least. So in high school, I was actually focused more on extracurriculars and things that were more leading towards the law field. So I didn't take any law courses, but I took a lot of English courses. So I took actually all of them that were offered. So there was like creative writing, topics in literature, and then both 11 and 12. I took all of the sciences except for bio. So I took chem and physics. I think around grade 11, grade 12, I still wasn't really sure what I wanted to do or what direction I was heading towards. But then I think my extracurriculars helped guide that a bit. So I was president of the mock trial team for the last year, and I was co-president the year before. And then I started getting involved in extracurriculars like the Massey Hacks, so the hackathon that we had at our high school. Also got involved with Code Reach as a volunteer. So I started to explore computer science a bit more, aside from the other computer science classes that I took in high school. So Vincent Massey, the high school that I went to, offered computer science classes grade 10, 11, and 12. So I took the 11 and 12 ones. And I really enjoyed those. I felt that I was really comfortable with the content. And then that actually spurred my decision to apply to a bunch of computer science programs. And I took a break from law for a bit.
Awesome. So how was your experience different, like comparing the law field and the IT field? And what are some, like I would say, primary differences between the two fields?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first, what I started to realize, there were two main differences, academic and industry. So the academic differences, I feel, are evident in the way that there are different assessments. So for example, in like an English or law exam, you might have multiple choice, mostly short answer. The assignments are more like essay based. So when I was taking those English classes, I felt that I was exercising a different part of my brain versus it was more like qualitative reasoning and how to express an idea and prove it. And then in math and more computer science, the academics are a bit more straightforward. It's like, does your code run or not? Or can you prove this equation or not? So that was a different exercise, but I think that they both kind of complement each other pretty well. You need to have both the qualitative and quantitative reasoning to be able to reach a conclusion. So I think that because I was interested in both, I was able to put them together. As for the differences in industry, so I did a couple of co-ops at a couple of law firms. So as a high school co-op student, I did one at an criminal law office and one at an immigration law office, which turned into a part-time job actually. So it was a lot of paperwork, but I was able to see firsthand the issues that the clients were dealing with. The immigration law kind of spoke to me a bit more. I was able to deal closely with clients. In the criminal law position, I actually was able to go into court on a couple of occasions and just walk into a random room and kind of experience what was going on. So it's a bit more structured, but focuses a lot on communication and documentation. So everything has to be written. As for the computer science industry, during my internship at Microsoft, I saw that it is a lot of collaboration as well as independent work, and it's more so about how to work on a team and how you can really see the impact of your code or your project kind of go through the whole team, how it really impacts the entire project as a whole. So I kind of said a lot there, but that's the
Yeah,
overview.
fantastic. So moving into university, especially first year,
Yeah.
transition from high school, how did you find the theory, like computer science theory, especially since you had previous hands-on experience in the IT?
Yeah, so computer science first year, it's a lot of math. It's probably the most math that you have like the whole 4 years of the program. So I was doing like both calculus courses, linear algebra, mathematical foundations, and then you start to get into the theory, like you said, so key concepts of computer science. It was different, but I think that the technical experience that the courses in high school helped me build more solid understanding of how the theory works as well. And to be honest, Massey prepared me really well for university. We already did some of the theory that I ended up seeing, excuse me, in my first and second year. So it was just an adjustment, but I found that because, especially at the University of Windsor, having prior computer science knowledge isn't a prerequisite. They really start from the base. So it was easy just as long as I kept up in class and asked questions whenever I was curious to be able to kind of follow that content. And then in first and second year, it kind of switches from now you don't have that many programming courses. It's also becoming more theory. So it was important to get that foundation in the first year for sure.
Awesome. And how did you find the classes are different from high school, especially moving from small class sizes to bigger class sizes, and even the interaction with the teacher is different from interaction with the professor?
Absolutely. So I noticed a couple of things right off the bat. The first was, like you mentioned, the size of the class. So in high school, you have about 30 students max, like 35. And then in my first year classes, I was in, well, it was online, but you have 160, 180 people in a class. And then this year is my first year fully in person, and it's weird kind of seeing like 100 people in a lecture hall. It was an adjustment, but I think it's nice to know that you're not in it alone, kind of. You have 100 other people in the experience with you. So that was the first difference. It at times can feel like you're just another number in the system if you really don't make the effort to make yourself stand out. So that was something that I intentionally set out to do. Sorry, I think my camera. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry about that. So I intentionally set out to help myself stand out in a class size of maybe like 100 160 people by getting to know the professor, which brings me to the third point where it is very different dealing with a teacher or professor. A teacher might in high school reach out to you to ask about a certain assignment or your progress in the class, but it relies a lot heavily on initiative and self-advocacy in university, where if you don't introduce yourself to the professor, you'll never end up meeting them. So that those were the main differences.
Awesome. And how was your experience different moving forward, like in the upper years?
I think I became a lot more comfortable, especially because my experience started online. So my entire university experience was remote for the first 2 years, I can say. And then there was a semester where it was a hybrid situation, and now it's fully in person. I personally love in person a lot more. I consider myself to be an extrovert. So just being able to talk to people, to interact with professors firsthand, experience a bit more of that university life, I think has been really valuable. And the courses I think have been not easier, but I'm more used to managing them. So it's really, I think, just practice, getting to know how to identify patterns in professors and success criteria. First year, it might be a bit difficult to understand what's expected of a student, of okay, what do I need to do to be successful in this class? But when you start getting into your second, third, and then I assume fourth year, it becomes a lot easier to manage.
Awesome. There's actually one area in computer science which sparks my interest, which is some computer science courses have lab components.
Yeah.
How does the lab component, like, what does it look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's actually something that if I mention, oh, I have a lab, people kind of get confused. They're like, oh, aren't you studying computer science? So lab components are the primary way to introduce the technical aspect of any course. So let's say a great example is a class like Java. So it's called object-oriented programming with Java. In the lecture, you'll learn a lot about the concepts of object-oriented programming, how that relates to specific examples, and the syntax, the semantic of the language itself, and the capabilities of the different libraries or the different data structures that you can use in parallel to that. And then in the lab component, which is like once a week, you get to program. So you have an assignment. Sometimes they're due within the lab. I think that's how it used to be, but since COVID, you have like a week to do it. Where you're given an assignment or you're given a program, and then you have to apply the conceptual ideas and the theories that you learned in class, like how to create different classes that interact with each other, for example, and then you would kind of build a system to do that. So in class, you might learn about how you can introduce like polymorphism or abstraction or whatever in the Java class, and then you apply that to create like a bank system, for example, in your lab. So it's a really nice way to bridge those two things together. They're marked, and honestly, I've always found that they're the best way to learn because you're hands-on adding that experience. Sometimes you can even leave a lab with something that you can put on your portfolio if you continue to improve it and work on it.
Awesome. And what extracurriculars are you involved in on campus, and how are those enriching your student experience?
Yeah, so I started getting involved with different extracurriculars on campus primarily because I was online. Some people might think it's harder to do things online and to be involved, but I kind of saw it as a way to make up for the fact that I was online. So it was difficult to meet new people in the program. So I first started getting involved with the Computer Science Society as a first-year representative. And now I'm the vice president. So it's been an amazing way to first get to know the program a bit more. I was also a first-year undergraduate representative for the School of Computer Science. So that helped me really get to work with the faculty and the staff, which are now like long-lasting connections. And it's been a great way to really make a difference. Like I know who to reach out to if there's a student concern or a question, basically. I'm also involved with the University of Windsor Student Alliance as a student senator. So I've taken a couple of student advocacy roles. And last year I led the Google Developer Student Club, which is more of a technical leadership role, but it was a really cool opportunity to put on a lot of different events and workshops that helped both undergraduate and graduate students apply those conceptual theories, I guess, to technical experience and bridge that gap.
Awesome. Let's touch on your recent Microsoft internship experience.
Sure, yeah. So I can give an overview. The co-op application process typically starts in, I want to say, January or February of the second year. So students will start to apply around that time for an application in the summer, for not an application, sorry, an internship or a co-op in the summer. I applied a bit earlier just because I knew that it was a bit more competitive of a process than other companies. So I actually applied in, I want to say, October, and then I got my first interview. It was an over the phone HR screen around like November. I had my final round, which was a technical programming interview in January, in the beginning of January, and then I had my offer letter in February, and then I started in May. So it was a pretty long process, but the internship itself was one of the best experiences. It was technically remote. I lived in Toronto for the end and half of it, I guess. So my team is based in Seattle, but I was in Toronto. But it was still an amazing experience because the new Canadian headquarters is there now. So it was just so cool to be able to meet new people. I learned so much. I realized that like internships and co-ops and job experience in general is the best way to actually solidify your knowledge in that industry, because school is a great way to learn the theory, but you'll never really see how it's applied until you step into the industry yourself. And yeah, I'm excited to be back there next summer in Seattle this time. So it's been an amazing experience. I'm really excited.
Awesome. And what are some advices you would like to give for people who are interested in computer science, whether they are switching programs in university or whether they are coming straight from high school?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think one thing that's really important to note is that there still isn't enough females in computer science. It's still very much a male-dominated industry. Like in I think my first year, maybe a classroom of 160 students, there were maybe 10 girls, which was a bit disappointing for me, but I slowly see that number growing. So first advice I would have to give that's targeted more to females that are interested in entering the field is not to be discouraged by that. I think it can be proved to be an advantage sometimes. It helps you stand out a bit more, and I think there are a lot of support systems that are available on campus and just in general that are really dedicated to supporting females in STEM in general, and now in computer science specifically. And the other piece of advice I would say is just not to self-reject. I know even whether that's an internship project or an application, to just try, because you never know what'll end up happening. I didn't think that I would get into Microsoft, but I ended up doing it, and that's only because I applied in the first place. I think that there's a lot of opportunities out there in every field, but especially because computer science is growing so fast, that being action oriented and really just jumping in there is a huge advantage, and it'll help whoever is interested in the field to kind of get a step up.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for those insightful advices and for taking us through your journey. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much.